This script is really draining me. Who knew that writing about Redacted would be so exhausting? I need something to distract myself. Wait, what's...
Oh, shit! A rat!
So, something I haven't really touched on in my videos yet is that your local non-binary friend here loves a good rhythm game. I mean, I've already had a fascination with video game music for a while, so meshing that with the gameplay? Of course that's gonna click with me. Not all of them are great, but the ones that jive with me tend to be really good stress relief. Likewise, I love a good platformer. Games with flow and good movement that have you scaling these big obstacles. They're great when done right. So when a friend referred me to this little game, Mad Rat Dead, I was pretty curious. A rhythm-based platformer? That sounds like a pretty big undertaking. And while I've seen this concept go right before, those games are more automated. And I've also seen them go very, very wrong. Pondering which side this game would fall on, I decided to give it a look. This will be different than my previous core videos. Here's a straight up review of Mad Rat Dead, and how it breaks the mold of traditional rhythm games. Right off the bat, something clicked with me in Mad Rat Dead, and that was its premise and presentation. A rhythm game with a story that isn't inherently about music is, well, nearly impossible to come across, and to have a fairly unique one too, that's even rarer. So the game basically starts like this.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
And here we are. Also our heart talks now. This is Mad Rat. Mad Rat doesn't particularly like the fact that he's been toyed with and experimented on all his life, and wants to kill the human who subjected him to all this torture. All the while, Mad Rat fights off some pretty wild monsters which may or may not be all in his head. It's a pretty surface level plot, but it goes through a couple twists to keep you attentive. I won't mention it too much past this point, as my focus is on the game itself rather than the story, but it's enjoyable for what it is. Heck, there's even some character development, as light as it may be. Almost tugs on the heartstrings on some occasions. You also get some endearing interactions between our edgy rat boy here and his heart, and those are just some good silly fun. They have a couple chuckle-worthy lines here and there, and it's worth reading at least once, despite the localization feeling a little underdeveloped sometimes. In fact, the sort of lighter tone and chemistry of our main duo is very appreciated for a sort of dark premise and visual flair this game has. And said visual flair absolutely pops. The art has a lot of grimy vistas contrasting with bright colored enemies, which is not only stylized, but it helps you keep track of what you can interact with in the gameplay. It's sort of a middle ground between cutesy and macabre, which gives the game a very unique identity. You usually only see commitment to one at a time. And because of this style blending, Mad Rat Dead isn't afraid to shy away from certain horrifying imagery. There's some pretty wild stuff going on in here, like, whoa, damn, that's mildly perturbing. Speaking of style, I also just love the animation here. I've been thinking for a while that animated games are the next step to surpass sprite-based games, and Mad Rat Dead helps enforce that thought full stop. The posing is so damn good. I love how as you hit beats successfully, Mad Rat does a bunch of cool poses, but will still sometimes occasionally fumble. Just a cute little detail that adds some character. And the way Heart gets more and more excited the longer you keep a combo going in a song, it's just adorable. Look at him go, yeah, yeah, yeah! Oh. Even when you aren't playing though, the characters bob to the beat in cutscenes, which is very cute. The boss monsters are wonderfully done, being both intimidating and cool, and the environments are just gorgeous. They have a very painted aesthetic to it. Really, it's all just a visual spectacle. Mighty impressive for a game I hadn't heard about until recently. But all this would be meaningless without the gameplay sticking the landing too, right? How is that gameplay then? So, as I stated in the intro section, rhythm-based platformers are very 50-50. Heck, rhythm games in general are kinda that way. Like, you need variety to keep your game afloat for the runtime, but you also don't want to become too eclectic and lose focus. It's hard to strike that balance with rhythm games. Sometimes they're too busy, sometimes they're too boring. The best type is that happy medium, which luckily, Mad Rat Dead strikes with ease. But damn, it feels like it's too busy at first. So the basic controls are pretty simple. Between the 4 face buttons, by default, B jumps and A dashes. The dash can get up small ledges and across wide gaps, while the jump gives more verticality. Y does a little slam, which cannot be overwritten by another command until you hit the ground. and X lets you charge in place to get a higher jump or bigger dash. Or you can use it to stall via breakdancing. That's how I used it anyway. Fairly simple, yeah? Well, yes, that's true, but you also have to do these moves to the beat of the music. It can seem a little daunting, and there are a lot of ways to mess up if you misuse an input. Mainly, a chunk of my issues come with the homing attack. If you use a jump input repeatedly near an enemy, you'll home in on them and clear them from the map. Neat! But say you're in a chain of enemies and you use a jump input too soon before reaching the next enemy. That can be a bit nasty for you, and cause you to... yeah. But hey, it's not all bad. If you die mid-level, you're given the opportunity to rewind, up to 12 beats before the death, at the cost of that many beats in your time limit. Just a neat little failsafe in case things go sour. And trust me, they can definitely go sour on your first time through, at least a few times. But truthfully, I'm glad that overall, despite the game's difficulty, it's not brutal or punishing. You don't need to shove game overs and crippling penalties in a player's face for a flawed performance. The player will learn in due time if you trust them, and I think that's something Mad Rat Dead understands very well. As you learn the game, you'll learn how to move to the beat, which will probably make you want to go back and get better rankings for the earlier stages. A very sort of intrinsic reward, and that's what I love best. When mastery of a game's mechanics are their own reward, that's, to use a term mostly used by professional critics and the like, based as fuck, man. And there's many ways to learn how to master the game too. Stage select makes it easy to replay any cleared stage, of course, but you can also mix and match stages and songs. So if there's a song with a fast BPM that trips you up, practice it on the tutorial stage and get a hang of the beats. Or if you want to challenge yourself, mix and match a hard stage with a really fast song. The only catch here is that you can't get the highest rank, S+, when you mix and match. Though that's more so to prevent cheating every achievement with the tutorial song. So that's the general gist of the game, yeah? Well...
the answer is yes and no.
There's a couple extra things I want to cover before we move on, and that mainly lies in what the game doesn't tell you. If there's one thing I can definitely hold against Mad Rat Dead, it's that the tutorial is a little unhelpful. So here's a few tips I think will help if you want to play the game for yourself, or just want to understand things a little better. First things first, I'd like to state that yes, you can even use your charge move in midair. As far as I know, the game never tells you this, but it is a huge help sometimes. If there's a pretty large gap between enemy chain, you misplace the jump, or you need to avoid a big attack in a boss battle, this is a very helpful strategy. It's also just funny to watch Mad Rat breakdance in midair. Did you use your double jump right before you attack an enemy? Well, not to worry, as you can use your slam attack to attack them as well. It also homes in like the jump attack, though it has a slightly narrower range, so only use it if you're certain you're gonna hit. So about that aforementioned rewind you get if you die in a level, you can actually use that at any point. Just press L and R and you can rewind as you wish. Just mind the time limit, and the fact that you lose your current combo. Another important thing worth noting is how your jumps and dashes work. You get 2 jumps in midair, as well as a single dash. However, by bouncing off a wall or an enemy, you get an extra double jump and an extra dash. Very useful, especially to use that extra dash and jump to bridge a long gap between 2 enemies. Contrary to what my gameplay shows, you do not constantly have to hit every single beat. I'm just an overachiever. No, Mad Rat Dead is actually very generous in allowing you to assess your situation if you're overwhelmed. If you find a good place to stop and think, and you need to stop and think, then stop and freaking think. The game doesn't penalize you, nor does your combo fade unless you miss a beat. The only thing you have to lose is time, which is plentiful in this game. The game isn't perfect, but honestly, for a concept like this, it works way better than it has any right to. Once you get the hang of it, it sinks its hooks into you, and you just keep playing, keeping the beat better and better with each level. Eventually, you start playing like this, and once that happens, you never look back. or you can go to hard mode to humble yourself. But now that I've gotten the big hurdle out of the way, can I just gush about the soundtrack for a bit? Rhythm games and good soundtracks go together like strawberries and chocolate. That's just how the world works. They are meant to be together. But that being said, holy hell, this soundtrack is phenomenal. I don't think there's a single track I outright dislike, and even the weaker ones are bops in their own right. I mean, when the title theme is a banger, that's how you know you're in for a treat. But really, I'd just like to go over some of my favorite tracks for a bit if that's okay. For a game like this, I think it's only fair. So let's dig into a few tracks that really get my heart pumping. Cheddar Chaser is the first real level in the game, after getting you accustomed to most of your moves, and as such, it takes the training wheels off with a slightly faster beat than its predecessors. I love the sort of underlying dread it has too. This comes after the scene where Mad Rat realizes he and Hart are all alone in wanting to kill the scientist. All the other rats are pretty content where they are. And because of that, I think it captures this bitter feeling in its instrumentation while still being a funky, bouncy tune. And the use of leitmotifs from the previous levels is also really appreciated. It brings the whole first world together before the boss. The chaotic energy in Ghost of Culvert is absolutely fantastic. The first boss was a good indicator that something's not quite right with Mad Rat's world, but this one puts it up front that the world is out to get this rat. The tempo never lets up, giving this rushing feeling of go, go, go! And yet, it also feels strangely triumphant, as if to say, this may be stressful, and that demon rat may be terrifying as sin, but you've got this! And that's a tricky balance to get right. In fact, Mad Rat Dead's soundtrack in general pulls off a good amount of those tone fusions. I also love the weird doing sound that happens in the song. I'm sorry, there's no better way to describe it. Stilton just feels uneasy. In the context of the story, it should. You're close to your goal, but something feels off. It fluctuates in its tempo. The world warps around Mad Rat, and so too does the music. The use of accordion in the second half also helps accompany the uneasy feeling here. It's sinister, trippy, yet still funky, showing how Mad Rat still doesn't know of what lies beyond the surface of his hallucinations. He's still laser focused on his mission, unaware of how far he's drifted from said mission. But this is just the build up to the next level, Yellow Invitation, which gets even trippier. And then after that, Splash Plop Gurgle goes in. Electro Swing is a pretty common genre for this game, but this level doubles down in that, and it's beautiful. I can't really say anything about this one, it doesn't apply to Stilton or the other ones, but God, listen to this! Camellia really gave his all on this game, and especially this track. I absolutely love the trope of a dark reprise. Using a track that was established in the early game and then repurposing it for a more grim context, that's that good shit. Mad Heart is a remix of Heart's Beat from Chapter 1 in the game. A pretty happy-go-lucky tune, as Hart and Mad Rat just formed the friendship that'll make up the rest of the game. But here, that friendship is being tested as Mad Rat fights Hart. And the way this formerly optimistic tune twists itself into a boss song, it's a sick beat, and shows that yes, Hart is gonna set Mad Rat straight one way or another. There's a lot of other tracks I could go over, but we'd be here all day. I'd rather leave the back half of the game a surprise if you want to check out the game for yourself. Although, check out Mini Moon and Heartless Being, they're some of my faves. But in my opinion, I don't think there's a bad track in this game, which is one impressive feat. Every rhythm game usually has their Shrimp Shuffle or Gone with the Wind. Some track just isn't a good vibe or has a really bad playstyle attached to it. But with Mad Rat Dead, every track goes off. And honestly, good. Now, even with everything I've said so far about Mad Rat Dead, I actually do have some minor problems with the game, beyond its slightly faulty tutorial. Now, these flaws by no means taint the game, but I thought I might as well bring them up, so as to not seem entirely biased in its favor. Sound good? Alright, here we go then. So, I've briefly mentioned this before, but yes, this game does have boss battles and they're 50-50. None are outright terrible, but some of them can be a little unfair with how little they telegraph their attacks. Weirdly enough, I'd say the first boss is the toughest in that regard, and then it's all uphill from there. But between the bosses in an arena and the bosses that revolve around the level, I personally lean more towards the arena-based ones, even if the level-based ones are better designed. I don't know, something about moving around in a cramped arena, dodging attacks and striking back is just more fun to me. Might have something to do with making the most out of your limitations, but either way, just know that these are probably the weaker parts of the game. They definitely have the most visible flaws, I'd say. And speaking of flaws, I do wish there was a better way to telegraph the tempo changes in a song. I know this can be done by memorizing the song and whatnot, but sometimes the speed at which your beats come can slow down without the song doing so too. It's just kind of a small annoyance that can become a big one if you have a hard time memorizing beats. Luckily, only a handful of stages in the game have this problem. And I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating that the whole enemy chain thing, where you have to like homing attack one enemy, and then homing attack another one, it can be a little weird, especially if like the gaps are different sizes between enemies. But you know, just remember, after each enemy, you get that extra dash and jump, so use that to your advantage, and also make sure you have those L and R buttons ready at all times. Honestly though, like I said, these flaws aren't enough to drag the game down for me. Just a few things I thought I'd list, so you can make your own decision on if you want to check the game out or not. Mad Rat Dead is a wonderful game. It falls a little short in certain areas, but through its charm, its razor-tight mechanics, banging music, and surprisingly heartfelt story, it won me over. It got a grip on me and refused to let go. In layman's terms, it's a rhythm gamer's delight. Yeah, there's the line. But really, I didn't expect this game to be as good as it was. If you like rhythm games, platformers, or anywhere in between, check it out. Or at the very least, give the soundtrack a listen. I don't know if I'd say it's entirely worth the $40 price tag, but on a sale, I'd absolutely say go for it. It's got content to keep you coming back, a style and story that's vibrant and lovely as hell, and it's just a great time. Alright, now I've got all that out of my system, I can finally get back to work on Redacted. How far was I in that anyhow? Oh.